Venice, a city where water and stone coexist in timeless dialogue. Every 2 years, it becomes the epicenter of architectural innovation. This year, Venice welcomes the 19th Biennale Architettura and introduces a transformative vision, embracing the synergy of natural, artificial, and collective intelligence to redefine our built environment. On the initiative of the Government of Flanders and commissioned by the Flanders Architecture Institute, curator and landscape architect Bas Smets, in collaboration with neurobiologist Stefano Mancuso, present Building Biospheres. Building Biospheres challenges conventional perceptions by positioning nature as an active, intelligent participant in architectural design. Such a project is not the work of one mind alone. A visionary project requires a visionary team. Follow us on this journey into an extraordinary project that reimagines the impact of plant intelligence on architecture.
I am Bas Smets, I'm a landscape architect and I have an office in Brussels and in Paris.
So the exhibition is called Building Biospheres and it has a double ring to it. It is about the construction of biospheres. We are building a biosphere, but it's also the biosphere in a building as a biosphere. And now historically, we've always made architecture as an isolated element from the outdoor world. We've heated our buildings, we have ventilated our buildings, but we've maybe forgotten that in nature, in the outdoor world, it's plants that make climates. And so what we're trying to do here is come to a new relationship between nature and architecture, using the intelligence of plants to produce an indoor climate.
Now, it's interesting to see that we spend 80% of our times indoors in buildings that are cut off from the biosphere. Now, the biosphere is what supports our life. I mean, every time you inhale, you're inhaling something plants have made, the air. And yet, architecture that in the beginning served to protect us against rain, wind, snow, has become this isolation from the outdoors.
Instead of seeing architecture as separated from the natural world, we try to come to a new collective intelligence where one works with the other.
From over 40 proposals, 3 finalists emerged. Each brought a unique perspective to the future of architecture. Yet, it was Building Biospheres that captured the jury's imagination.
My name is Dennis Pohl. I'm director of the Flanders Architecture Institute. The project convinced the jury univocally in its decision because of its transdisciplinary setting, its implication for architecture from a broader perspective to involve researchers to understand what those groundbreaking research has to say in terms of architectural implications for the practice. Building Biospheres redefines our very notion of sustainability. It doesn't follow the technocratic notion about norms, systems and materials that are the main factors to define what is sustainable and what is not, but it looks for a sort of cohabitation with plants that changes our very conception of sustainability.
Not just a vision of sustainability, but a fundamental rethinking of the built environment.
How can we design with the nature and not against it? How can we let nature be part of our broader spatial planning, not only inside buildings, but also in our broader landscape?
We're at an architectural biennial, and we're saying architecture should go back to its first role in making life possible. The first shelters we made were really about protecting ourselves from the outdoor climate. Now that outdoor climate is drastically changing, so architecture should follow that role of protecting us against that climate. And I'm thinking us humans, but I'm also thinking plants and animals. And even in a dystopian future, 2100, 5 degrees more, maybe we have some architectural shelters that help plants to survive. So it's really about rethinking architecture as a way of surviving on a planet in a climate crisis.
While these architectural experiments point to future possibilities, Véronique Pateu brings a critical lens from the past, showing how today's climate-responsive thinking builds on a long and often overlooked architectural tradition.
Bas asked me to join the team to reflect on how we could learn from architectural history and how we could reflect on his idea within architectural practice. There was one architectural historian, which his name was Rainer Banham, and he wrote this very intriguing book, which is called The Architecture of the Well-Tempered Environment. He wrote the book in 1969. So his idea of the well-tempered environment is to see how architects could think of mastering, of controlling indoor climate. So he had 3 modes. The first mode is what he called the conservative mode. He said, well, look towards the thickness, the materials of the walls with which we make architecture. The second one is what he calls the selective mode. It is simply the way how we have windows, doors in a house that you can open and close in order to create ventilation. Now the third one, it is called the regenerative mode, and he says we should think much more about environmental technologies that control the indoor climate. This book became important because it showed in a way how today we can think of new ways of dealing with climate control and how building biospheres could maybe add on a new mode, which is thinking about the intelligence of plants and dealing with them as a new way of thinking about the environment.
We have been reaching out to people that we want to work with, but also discussing with young architects what would trigger their imagination based on what we proposed here. And we did a number of workshops with these people, and it was interesting to see that it needs these discussion, it needs this collective intelligence to imagine a new future. And so I think we're at a very interesting point in time where we have the promise of AI, also the menace of AI, and that only through this collective intelligence we can make all this work.
I am Lisa de Visser. I am an architect. I am working also as a critic and a curator of exhibitions, and I'm teaching in the University of Liège. I have been invited by Bas Smets to join his team for the Architecture Biennale because he wanted to create a link between his prototype and architecture. The prototype is something completely new. Therefore, we really wanted to know what was going to be the consequence of this system once it was integrated in a building. The consequences on typology, on structure, on techniques, and on the use of the space. We launched a call to 20 architects, and then we selected 4 offices to work on the prototype of Bas Smets in the Biennale. Therefore, it was a very interesting learning platform for the young architects because they had to work with something that was never used before, and they had to invent the whole links between the system and the architecture. What was so enriching for them also is that it was a kind of reality check. Is it really something that works or not? Panta Studio and Elmes worked on the typology question. They were examining the impact of the prototype on collective housing and on office buildings. And Henri Uiteragen and Mautjera Goossens, together with Steven Schenk and Lisa Mandelaert, were looking how the prototype could be refined to change the comfort in individual housing. And the other project was examining the question of the materials that could be used for building with these biospheres.
As the young architects explore the spatial and structural potential of the prototype in their projects, one question remains central. What kind of plants could inhabit the Belgian Pavilion to produce a biosphere? The pavilion is understood as an artificial climate that allows plants from a similar natural climate to thrive, and in doing so help create a cooling microclimate. To bring that vision to life, Bas collaborated with Eric de Waele, a botanist with a deep understanding of the species best suited to thrive, indoors, with us and for us.
I'm Erik de Waele, and I'm the man who put all those greenery together.
We didn't want to take a piece of forest and remake it in the pavilion. We wanted to make a hybrid forest.
And after a while, we found that a mix of subtropical plants are the best choice because it's an indoor garden. It's always near of people. We need plants who have the same atmosphere likes than humans. That was the base of our choice. They are now half a year in Ghent, and you already feel it that one is supporting the other. Every plant, we give them a number, and then we can rebuild the same thing in Venice.
And so we thought if we bring plants from the subtropics into the pavilion, if we harvest knowledge, harvest data from those plants, harvest natural intelligence, if you like, if we link that to artificial intelligence, we can know what plants want and we can have plants decide the interior climate regulation.
Plant ecophysiologist Cathy Stepp of Ghent University and software developer Dirk de Pauw of Plant Analytics have worked on a prototype of the installation for the Belgian Pavilion.
My role in the Building Biospheres is basically to foresee the technology, the plant sensors, to watch and give them a voice how they feel. We brought trees inside. These trees, they have an ability to create a microclimate, and to make that microclimate, they have to function well. So we measure on the plant itself with sensors that we have developed also here at the Faculty of Bioscience Engineering in my lab. For example, this sap flow sensor measures the water that is transported through the plant. And then when the plant transports the water, it takes the heat with it. And in that sense, we know exactly how much water the plant is using. This water basically is transpired into the atmosphere, creating a microclimate. And on the other hand, the dendrometer measures the shrinkage, the swelling, and the growth of the plant. Normally, it's a kind of a heartbeat. If the plant is performing well, this is a nicely heartbeat that comes back. But if the plant is stressed, this pattern will change. These two sensors are part from the technology that we have been developing since many years already, and it's called Tree Watch.
My name is Dirk de Pauw from Plant Analytics. I develop software for plant scientists and agriculture and horticulture. My specialty is plant sensors, data acquisition, processing, analysis, visualization, and also mathematical plant modeling. I have several roles within the Building Biospheres project. The first one is that all the data is collected from the sensors. It uses my data platform, which is called Plant Hub. I'm also developing the climate controllers that can switch on all the actuators like the ventilation, the irrigation, the lighting. And finally, I'm also developing the visualization that will be projected on the back wall of the pavilion, where we try to show what is actually happening inside of the installation. The biggest challenge in working with plants is that they are living organisms. So they grow, they change. If you want to monitor them, you have to adapt to them. So monitoring is like one thing, but we need to translate the measurements into something that the building needs. For example, when do we need to switch on the lights? Does the plant need water, or does the temperature need to be higher? So these are things that we can extract from the measurements and then translate that into actions for the building.
In the Belgian Pavilion, these ideas take form. The space becomes a living laboratory, where visitors don't just observe architecture, they experience it. Air, light, and water interact with plants, demonstrating in real time how nature can enhance urban life. A visualization projected onto the back wall reveals the unseen life within the installation, allowing us to witness how the plants respond, grow, and adapt. It's a window into a living system where data becomes dialogue between nature and architecture. The pavilion is not just an exhibition, it is a manifesto, a call to architects, urban planners, and citizens to rethink the way we build, to imagine cities that breathe, adapt, and thrive alongside nature.
I think we have to rethink architecture as the organization of different life forms. And so not just as a space, but really as a possibility to make biospheres in which life can happen.
As the world faces environmental and urban challenges, Building Biospheres offers more than just an exhibition. It offers a vision of hope. A world where architecture is no longer an obstacle to nature, but an extension of it. A world where cities are not only places to live, but places to grow.